Hello everyone. So my name is Sham Kumar and welcome to my YouTube channel Hobby Engineer Tech. So I have came back with a powerful series which is Interaction History in Pega CDH. Okay, and we are going to deep dive into architecture and also the functionality of interaction history in Pega CDH. So let's get started. So the list of content which we are going to discuss in this new series. First one, we'll do a recap of capture response, and then we will do the introduction to interaction history, and then we will see how that interaction history DB architecture and also star schema powers this IH, and also we will see how it is scalable, and also now there are few enhancements to this DB architecture, which is file-based architecture, IH file-based architecture. Okay, and then we will see how to browse the interaction history, and then we will see IH export and retention settings. So first, let us actually start with a recap. As you know, in our YouTube channel, we have done a capture response series and which introduced IH to us, correct? So capture response service is generally used to capture the outcome of the interaction for further processing, like storing the interaction into IH, correct? And if you haven't gone through those videos already, I strongly recommend to go through them by clicking on the links in description. Okay. So yeah, in our capture response, we have discussed both inbound and outbound. So here, in this slide, as you can see, it actually describes how inbound works, you know. So let us say in the inbound, we are using a real-time container to show the offers on the website. Okay. And let us say the customer has viewed the credit card. Now, the website or the front end will actually call the capture response service by providing the outcome called impression, and that impression outcome for that interaction will be stored into interaction history. Okay, it will be stored if the database is enabled, and it will also be stored in file repository in the later versions. We'll discuss all those things, right? Apart from storing the data into the interaction history, it also does other things like updating the adaptive models, etc. Okay, and in the outbound scenario as well. So let us say in Pega, we have ran primary or secondary schedule, and it has sent a credit card to the customer. Okay. And this is how the email looks like in the customer's inbox. As you can see, if the customer clicked on the accept button, let us say if the customer has accepted this offer after 3 days. So if he accepted by clicking on the accept, now this accept button will internally call a capture response service, and that will store the data into interaction history. And also it will store the data into adaptive models. So this is how actually capture response will help us to capture the interactions either in inbound or outbound. So now, what is interaction history? $1 million question, right? So for a decision engine like Pega CDH, it's an essential thing to store the outcome of customer interactions, obviously. And what does it do? It helps us in making future decisions. Okay. It helps the business to understand various targeted KPIs. Okay. And that is the reason this IH series is designed to make you understand the fully functional architecture and also the backend things of IH. As a Pega CDH developer, yes, you have to know the entire architecture and backend of interaction history so that you will be, you will have a very great insight of how IH is actually working, how customers are getting interacted, and also if you want to design few mechanisms which is based upon the interaction history of the customer, then you can do it. All right. So the first thing, let us understand where the interactions data is stored. Okay. So there are two things, database and file repository. Okay. So until 8.7, IH was stored in database tables, and those database tables followed a schema called star schema. Yeah, we'll be understanding what is star schema in our next slides. Okay. Now from Pega 8.8, Pega introduced file repository storage option for IH. So now that means it has given an option not only to store the data into the database tables, but we can also be stored in the file repository as well. And starting from 24.2 or 25, I think the default option for interaction history is a file repository, okay, not the database table. Flat-based structure is allowed to store IH files till 24.1 as default. Okay, now what is flat-based structure? We'll discuss in our future slides. Okay, and from 8.8.5, a new structure called Hive-based structure is supported. Okay, if client want to switch for better performance and scalability, and we will also discuss what is Hive-based as well. Now from 24.2, Hive-based folder structure is made to default. Yeah, I mean it's nothing but the folder structure, how we are organizing the files into different folders. A Hive-based folder structure follows the big data design that we are going to discuss. And yeah, we'll be discussing this by seeing a demo later. The database table is still supported for IH storage for backward compatibility. Okay, that means for the clients who were migrating from the lower versions to higher versions. So Pega has to support the backward compatibility of IH because the older clients, I mean the older versions of Pega, we can actually access the data from interaction history database tables. So clients might be using reporting on the direct database table, or they might be using interaction history component inside their strategies, right? So but for the default, but by default in fresh instances, file repo is the default storage, and we can enable the database IH using this DSS. So let us say your client got a fresh instance, but somehow they have to use the database table IH as well, but this is not actually recommended. But if you want to do it, then it is possible by using a DSS called write to IH. Okay. Now, in the instance which we have, let us try to update our DSS value to true. Okay. Now let me navigate to Pega and open the DSS. You can also use the search option over here. So it is write to IH. So by default, it will be false. Just make it to true. Done. So yeah, when you turn on this DSS, it will enable writing of the interaction history records to the database as well. So that means it will not stop writing the data to the files. It will also write the data to files, and also it will write the data to database tables. Okay. Now let us record an interaction in IH using our customer profile viewer. Now the customer profile viewer uses the capture response service to record the interaction. It actually calls the process interaction history data flow. Now this process interaction history data flow is responsible to push the data to PX interaction history dataset. And this is how the process interaction history data flow looks like. Basically, it is called from a parent data flow that we will actually see in a shorter while actually seeing the Pega instance. As you can see over here, the source is abstract. That means it is being called from another data flow, or it can also be called from an activity by using single case processing. And here you can see there is a behavioral limit strategy which actually calculates the contact policies. All the contact policy will be stored into action insights to dataset, and the data which has to be stored into the interaction history will be going to this particular filter with actual response, and it will be stored into interaction history. All right. Now, what happens when the data is sent to PX interaction history, right? As you can see in our previous data flow, we have seen that the data is being sent to interaction history. So this data set is nothing but PX interaction history. So whenever a record is saved or entered into this PX interaction history, so Pega internally do this process. So first thing, it will send the data to PX responses stream. Okay, we will actually see what is this. This is a stream data set which is responsible to send the data to file repository. And the secondly, it will actually check whether write to IH DSS is enabled or not. If it is enabled, then it will write the data to IH fact table, and also it will write data to dimension tables. So we will understand what are these fact tables and dimension tables, and if the DSS is not enabled, then it will skip the IH writing to the database table only. So as you can see over here, so even though this DSS is enabled or not, the data will be sent to PX responses stream, and this PX responses stream is responsible for writing the data to file repository. So now let us go back to this slide, wherein let us actually see how to record an interaction in IH using our CPV. Okay, so I'm using CPV here. I also use it capture response in one of our previous series. You can actually go through it. So the capture response series actually provides you the input payload which you have to provide, and what are the details you have to provide. And also we have, once the response is captured, we are able to see that in the IH as well. But yeah, we will actually simulate everything using CPV. Go to Customer Decision Hub and open the customer profile viewer. So browse a customer, sample customer present in the system. I'm using 14 as my customer ID, and it will load the data of the customer named called Troy. So the customer data is loaded. Now let us trigger the next best action, mainly the web inbound. We are triggering a real-time container called top offers, and we are doing it in standard mode. Let us see what are the offers he will be eligible to send. All right. So the customer Troy has qualified for two offers, namely standard card and rewards card. Okay. Now let us send an outcome for this standard card using the capture interaction feature enabled in the CPV. Okay. We will send outcome called impression. Okay. And we'll click on capture and read decision. So this will in turn write this outcome into the interaction history. Okay. By using PX interaction history dataset. And once it is captured, so this feature actually does a redecision. That means it will run the trigger strategy again, and it will provide the offers. So now we have a tab called interaction history over here. So go to the interaction history tab, and this interaction history tab is the interface between this UI and also the backend file repository. When you click on load all interactions, then what happens? So it basically fetches the data from the file repository. So, but I have done the capture response right now. So will that data will be sent to files immediately? The answer is no. So we will explain the process. Okay, we will see the process now. So yeah, before we actually know the process, what we will understand is we will browse both the data sets. One is PX interaction history, and the second one is PX responsive stream. Okay. So why? Because as you can see, when the data is sent to PX interaction history, the Pega does this actual process, right? One, the data will be sent to PX response stream, which is a stream dataset, and the PX interaction history is a interaction history dataset. And when you browse the data from PX interaction history, it will get the data from the database table. Whereas when you do the PX response stream, it will get the data from the stream. And yeah, this stream data flow, which is listening the PX response stream dataset, is responsible for writing the data to file repository for every fixed interval of time. So, but now let us actually try to browse PX interaction history and also the PX response stream. So go to the Pega Dev Studio and search for PX interaction history. So the first one, select this first one, and this belongs to the class called data-px strategy result, and the dataset type is interaction history itself, and it has keys called py subject id and py subject type, and also it has partition key. Yeah, it is used to it is used to distribute the read operation across the different nodes. Okay. Now let us quickly run it. In the operation, I will select browse by keys, and I will be selecting py subject ID, and I will pass 14 as my value. And the results will be stored um, in a page called operation result. And under the operation result, we'll have px results. So under px results, page list will have the data. And by the way, when you browse the data from px interaction history dataset, it will retrieve the data from database table. So make sure the DSS is enabled. So the one DSS which we have called write to IH, I have enabled that particular DSS. Then only the data will be sent to database table. In our case, that record has been successfully retrieved from the database table. And this is how the record look like. Okay. So what are the main attributes it will have? The PY issue, PY group, PY name. Issue represents the business issue. Okay. In our case, the PY issue is grow and the PY group is credit cards. PY name is standard card. And most importantly, we will also have PX interaction ID. So every time and a decision is made for a single customer, okay, the trigger strategy or GOS top level strategy gets executed. Okay. So for that particular interaction, Pega generates something called interaction ID. So for every decision, the interaction ID will be unique. So let us say the customer has been qualified for more than one offer, and those two offers we got impression. Let us say, okay. So for since these two offers are qualified in the same interaction, they will have the same interaction ID. Okay. And then the PX fact ID. So the PX fact ID is the key of fact table. Now, what is fact table? We are going to learn about the fact tables and dimension tables in our next video or in the next slides. Now, the most important thing is PY outcome. Now, what is the outcome of this interaction? So the outcome of this interaction is impression. Now, what is meant by impression in terms of web channel? The customer has viewed the offer which has been sent by the Pega CDH. Okay. Yeah. So these are the values which you can see in the interaction history. Now you can also extend the interaction history. Yeah, we will see how to do it. We have a great working demos, and also we have many things with which we understand the backend of how interaction history actually works. So now the second data set which we are going to browse is PX responses stream. And this data set, as the name represents, it is a stream data set. And this will utilize the stream service of Pega. So then the Pega will try to push the data to this PX response stream dataset. And this dataset will be listened by another data flow in the backend. Okay. So before we actually view what is the data flow which is listening this particular dataset, let us quickly browse this dataset. So we will not have browse by keys operations since this is a stream dataset. And as you can see, we have given stop browsing after 10 seconds. That means it will browse the entire string for 10 seconds. We only have one record. Okay. And yeah, we got one record over here. And it will have the same data which we have seen in the PX interaction history browse results. Okay. Right. So now let us actually quickly go to the data flows landing page. So configure decisions, data flows, and go to real-time processing. So since this is a kind of real-time data set, the stream data set is real-time. That means whenever you send the data to this particular data set in the backend, a real-time data flow will actually listen to this data set and actually process the data, right? We will see what is the data flow which is responsible for that. So the data flow which is responsible for that is write data to interaction files. Now, what does this do? So it basically gets the data from PX response stream and it will write the data to interaction files. As you can see, this is not a physical data flow. This is a managed data flow by Pega itself. So Pega will create this data flow instance, and how does it create and all we will try to see in our next videos. But this is the data flow which is responsible for writing the data from PX responses stream to interaction files. So the interaction files is the destination, and this interaction files is the file dataset. Now let us actually see the interaction files as well. Okay, all right. So as you can see, this is a file data set, and the file location is files on repository, and the repository which we are going to use is file repo. And what is the path? So interactions is a folder, and under interactions, this file will be created. But Pega uses a more complicated structure called Hive. Okay, and it uses Hive structure to store the file. We will actually browse through our file repository and view how the data is getting stored. And by the way, I'm on 24.2 from by default the Hive structure has been enabled. In the next video I will also show you in the 8.8 or in the below versions how the data is actually looking like in a flat based structure as well. By default the data will be compressed into gz format. Okay, it's a JSON file and that is compressed into gzip format. Now we have to know an important settings. When you go to the run details over here, we see something called snapshot management. So create a snapshot every 900 seconds or 75,000 records. So 900 seconds, I think it's like maybe every 15 minutes, I guess. I think so. Yeah, 15 into 60, that would be 900 seconds. So for every 15 minutes or whenever 75,000 records has been reached, we are creating a snapshot. What does this mean? So for every 900 seconds passed by or for every 75,000 records, this data flow will try to push the data from PX responsive stream to interaction files dataset. So that means for every 15 minutes, a new file gets created in the repository. As you can see, it has already processed one record over here. And when you go to the file repository, so Pega has given this option for us. Okay, so you can, in the application switcher, you can actually go to file browser. It will actually prompt you for username and password. So you can click on this eye icon over here and put these values, Pega file repo, that is a username and password. So when you put and log in, it will actually navigate you to file repo. So this is the repository called file repo. Okay. And in this file repo, we have interactions over here. This is our folder, right? When you go to interaction files, you can see this is the folder. And under this folder, let us see how the structure actually look like. As you can see, we have another folder called partition folder. And under partition, we have year. Under year, we have month. Under month, we have day. And under day, we have hour. And in hour, we have this file over here. You can download this file. And by the way, this is a gzip format. Okay, I will directly open it. Maybe I will use WinRAR for this. Let me try to bring that file for you. So this is the file. Let me quickly do the formatting of it. As you can see, we have only one interaction recorded, and that interaction has been stored in the format of JSON in a file which is organized in a folder structure. This folder structure is called as a Hive folder structure, which is a very popular structure in big data or data warehouse. Okay, we are actually going to discuss more about Hive structure in our future sessions. But I hope you got enough information. What is interaction history, where we are actually storing. Okay, yeah. So now, so we have seen the interactions by using PX interaction history. And PX interaction history, we also know that it gets the data from database table, not from the file repository, whereas the PX responses stream gets the data from stream. Okay. So now in our next video, we will introduce the architecture of IH database tables. Okay, so stay tuned. Now, before that, let us actually, go to the customer decision hub in the CPV portal. When you click on load all interactions, so since the data flow has already sent the data to file repository, this load all interactions will try to get the data from file repository itself. As you can see, it has processed one record, and that record we actually can see it, and the outcome has been given as impression for this one. So yeah, every time you do an interaction, it will take 15 minutes to actually send the data to file repository. But you can ask me, so Sham, is there any way which I can reduce the time to send the data from PX responsive stream to interaction files. Yes, we can do it. So we have a very great demo in which will be coming on our future videos. So try to stay tuned. And yeah, in our next video, we will try to understand what are the different database tables involved in the architecture of star schema, okay, forming the interaction history alone. And we will also browse interaction history by using the PG admin tool provided to us by Pega. Okay, so stay tuned. A lot of things coming up, guys. So see you in the next video. Bye for now.